The no-fly zone is important. Having the protective force is critical. But we have to look at Africa not just after crises happen. What are we doing with respect to trade opportunities with Africa? What are we doing in terms of investment in Africa? What are we doing to pay attention to Africa consistently with respect to our foreign policy? That has been what's missing in the White House, and that our long-term security is going to depend on whether we're giving children in Sudan and Zimbabwe and in Kenya the same opportunities so that they have a stake in order as opposed to violence and chaos.
Congressman, I've got 15 seconds for you.
Unfortunately, as a result of our conflict in Iraq, the sustaining of a military presence there, have lost our moral authority, unfortunately. And as a result of that, our ability to mobilize the world on issues like Darfur has been severely damaged. But the United States should be able to take some unilateral action here in providing the kind of protection for people who are being slaughtered in that country. In the meantime, get our military out of Iraq, as I planned and offered to do, and thus regain that stature, which we need to be doing as a nation in this world, and be able to build those coalitions that will respond to an issue like Darfur. But in the meantime, the United States ought to act.
Thank you, Senator Dodd. Very quickly, Senator Clinton.
There are three things we have to do immediately. Move the peacekeepers that finally the United Nations and the African Union have agreed to into Sudan as soon as possible. In order for them to be effective, there has to be airlift and logistical support, and that can only come either unilaterally from the United States or from NATO. I prefer NATO. And finally, we should have a no-fly zone over Sudan, because the Sudanese governments bomb the villages before and after the Janjaweed come. And we should make it very clear to the government in Khartoum, we're putting up a no-fly zone. If they fly into it, we will shoot down their planes. It's the only way to get their attention.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Biden.
I have been calling for 3 years to stop talking and start acting. We don't have to wait to get out of Iraq to regain our moral authority. We've lost part of our moral authority because we stood by and watched this carnage. And if need be, if the rest of the world will not act, we should and should have already 2 years ago imposed a no-fly zone, and we should have 2 years ago, absent the willingness of the rest of the world to act, put American troops on the ground to stop the carnage.
Thank you, sir. Governor Richardson.
Not just the Middle East and Iraq.
Thank you very much. Senator Edwards. Thank you very much. Senator Edwards.
I agree. No-fly zone. We need to get a security force on the ground. Sanctions. Need to put pressure on the Chinese. But Darfur is part of a bigger question for America, which is how do we reestablish ourselves after Iraq as a force for good in the world again? And I think there are lots of things we ought to do. Instead of spending $500 billion in Iraq, suppose America led an effort to make primary school education available to 100 million children in the world who have no education, including in Africa. Suppose we led on stopping the spread of disease, sanitation, clean drinking water, and economic development.
Thank you very much. I've got just a few seconds. Senator Obama.
You know, in the last debate, I upset some people because I said we should use the levers on China on then hosting the Olympics to do something on Darfur. You know, I believe that fighting genocide is more important than sports. So what I would like to do is, one, a no-fly zone, get economic sanctions backed by the Europeans. We need to find ways to stop the massive rapes. I was in Darfur 3 months ago. Today, a report by Refugees International laid out a plan to deal with that. We should not forget about Africa. American policymakers should take stands on Africa, not just the Middle East and Iraq.
Thank you very much. Senator Edwards. Thank you very much. Senator Edwards.